Here.
Councilmember Williams. We have 3 members present.
Folks, we have a short agenda today, but we also do not have any items on the agenda in which to vote. So I would recommend that we really do not need to recess to receive public comment. Public comment can be received during the course, obviously, of the presentation regarding new links. But would that be fine with the rest of the council members if we just go straight onto the agenda? Okay, great. All right, with that, we are going to jump over to number 3 on the agenda item, which is approval of the minutes from the May 27th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Giarrusso, seconded by Councilmember Nguyen. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, so the minutes have been approved. The next item on the agenda is the new links presentation. Do we have our representative? There's Mr. Jason. Representative of the Regional Planning Commission to present updates on New Links project and timeline for future phases. So Jason, at this point then I'm just going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and to run the show for the presentation.
All right, thank you so much, Councilwoman. My name is Jason Sappington. I'm the Deputy Director of the Regional Planning Commission. I'm in my dining room right now, so hopefully this connection stays live, but I do have a brief presentation to give you all just to update you on the progress of the New Links project. I'm going to attempt to share my screen so that you can see this slideshow.
Can we turn him up a little bit? There we go.
Is that working for everybody?
Yes. Jason, is it possible to speak up a little bit?
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'm here to give you an update to the committee on the New Links process. We're about to launch phase 3 of the project. So this is a pretty critical juncture in the entire process. Phase 3, I'm happy to announce, is the final phase of the project. So we are actually going to be concluding this one in the near future. We're on the final stretch. I'd like to go. All right, I'd like to go briefly over the process. So phase 3, what it looks like is it's the development of the draft network plan. So it's really the culmination of all the work that we've been doing so far.
Sorry, Jason, could you speak a little bit more into your mic?
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I want to give you an idea of what the process looked like for putting that network plan together and give you a timeline for what phase 3 is going to look like. So I hope everyone is familiar with this project at this point, but I'm going to give you just a little brief background. New Links is a comprehensive operations analysis and network redesign that the Regional Planning Commission is doing in collaboration with the RTA and with Jefferson Transit to plan for a cost-neutral redesign of the regional transit network. The idea is to take the resources that we have right now and that we're using to run transit and build a better plan that fits the region's transportation needs. Using the existing resources means that we can have a plan that can be ready to go in the near future. So it's not a fantasy. This is something we could actually feasibly implement. So I want to talk a little bit about the methodology that we've used so far. During phase 2 of the project, we brought 3 concepts together, and I believe we might have briefed this committee, but I know we briefed some of the individual members of the committee on the concepts. But we brought these to the public, showing different ideas of how transit could be redesigned using the existing resources and based on different priorities. Concepts. So these were just concepts. They weren't plans. We weren't proposing any of these, but these were just ideas of what the transit system could look like. Concept A, very similar to the current system, just some minor changes, particularly to the schedule to improve reliability of the system without any real network changes. Concept B, most of the system's resources were put into higher ridership routes to create a regional network of high frequency lines that connect the 2 parishes, but that means you'd have less routes overall. And concept C introduces express services connecting different neighborhoods and major destinations in Orleans and Jefferson Parish, with the goal of getting people around the region faster. So here's what we heard during phase 2. We asked people what they thought about these concepts overall and what sort of specific changes they'd be willing to see or would be willing to tolerate to improve regional service overall. The strongest support we heard was on concept B and C. I should say the strongest positive feedback we received was on B and C, and that was good to hear because those were really the more ambitious of the 3 plans. And so people seemed to demonstrate that they had a real appetite for big changes to the system. Secondly, people told us they would be willing to see changes in how they currently travel if it improved their trip. So that means they might be willing to make more transfers. They might be willing to walk a little bit further to their bus stops to catch the buses 2 to 3 blocks, 2 to 4 blocks.
Jason, I have a question on that because I know we heard from community members when the RTA was looking at different ideas for Canal Street for the streetcar, and trying to make that route faster, right? And we heard a lot of complaints that people would have to walk further. So my question is, does this also apply to riders for a streetcar? Does this also apply to a rider that might be elderly or disabled? That's kind of some of the, so were you able to break that down even further?
I don't have those crosstabs in front of me, and I also can't really speak to the outreach process of the Canal Street project and who had who spoke up during that project. I'll say that, obviously there are some we don't want to just randomly remove bus stops. When you're talking about making bus stops further apart, you're talking about a very deliberate process between the time we finish and the time that this project would take place, wherein you'd look at neighborhood conditions, you'd see who lives in the neighborhood, maybe even infrastructure conditions, make sure there's adequate sidewalks, adequate shelters, things like that before you decide where to remove stops from. So
that's a really important point. So what you're saying is, even if you had general feedback,
yes,
that riders are willing to walk a certain additional amount of time, that's not going to be blanketly applied to every decision that y'all make.
No, it couldn't be.
You would be able to contextualize it into specific areas of the city and specific stops.
Yeah, absolutely. Walking 2 blocks and say uptown is a lot different than walking 2 blocks in the east, for example. So
Right.
It's all very context sensitive. All right, so sure I got this. Okay, so that feedback that we got as part of phase 2 gave us a set of goals that informed the network design process. To determine how we would allocate service around the region as part of the network plan, the project team developed something called the Transit Propensity Index. I'm not going to say that phrase too much, but that's basically all that is it incorporates data on residential, employment, and educational travel generators to determine where transit was needed the most. And this is something that was actually done as part of RTA's strategic mobility plan. We sort of did an upgrade to that as part of this process that was a little more fine-grained in detail and with more updated data.
So I want to get back to develop the Transit Propensity Index.
Sure.
So is that used internally or can that be used externally as well? Is that going to be like a general number?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it can be used for any purpose. We're using it to determine where best to allocate service, but that's a data set that can be used for any.
See, because I would love to see things and have the community and people talk about this Transit Propensity Index for viability, say for housing. Like you get a score for where the housing's located in terms of, like a good mobility score. Yeah. Which could be utilized, for many things. It can be utilized for where you want to put developments. It could be utilized on MLS, so people know that they're moving into an area that has a good mobility score. It could also help incentivize developers and the city, quite frankly, of investing more in areas that are transit, aligned, or bring more transit to areas that don't have it. Yeah, I think the latter is what we're looking at now, but I think using the data for the former of sort of helping inform other land use choices is
definitely would be a valid use of that tool.
Right.
So this is what it looks like. And so basically your purple is your highest transit propensity, and the grayish would be your lowest transit propensity based on the data set that we used. But we do understand that this doesn't necessarily tell the whole picture. You don't want to make all your decisions based just on that one data set. We want to recognize that there are other particularly low income residents or communities with residents of color that are not being prioritized in that service, that transit propensity index. So this was another index that was made that would show sort of to make sure that everyone that needed service that wasn't showing up on the previous index would in fact be considered when we're looking at transit redesign. So the project team has completed the draft network plan, and I believe the council people here, we've actually had an opportunity to brief all of you on that plan, and we're still welcoming feedback on that. We're preparing to release the plan itself, though, and launch phase 3 of the project in early October. October 7th, I believe, is the date. The network plan overall, it makes major investments in service equity. We believe it improves the number of frequent all-day connections to major job centers and other destinations such as schools, universities. We're also able to significantly improve the efficiency of transit through applying planning best practices and eliminating redundant routes. The trade-off for some of these improvements is that there is reduced coverage in some areas, and not all parts of the region would have bus service that do currently. So I'll talk about the next steps. We're in the process of finalizing that draft network plan right now. Like I said, been working on that all week, and I'm sure we'll be working it on all next week as well. We anticipate releasing that report and launching phase 3 in October. Our tentative release date is October 6th. It says right there. It'll be sometime that week, I'll say. 6th is sort of our target date. We're hoping to work closely with the council offices to ensure that we hear from your constituents. Outreach is difficult during the best of times. These are not the best of times, so any assistance that the council people can provide to us in getting the word out. I'll say, though, that working with RTA and Jet and the folks that ride New Orleans, we have come up with a pretty robust outreach strategy, and we think it'll succeed in not just reaching people via Zoom calls, but actually reaching people who are indeed riding and relying.
Could you repeat that a little bit louder in terms of the outreach?
Don't know how far to rewind, but I'll just say I think we've developed a pretty robust outreach plan, working with RTA and with Jefferson Transit, wherein riders themselves will be able to fill out surveys and put them in secure boxes at major transfer stations. So it's not ideal. Nothing really is ideal right now in September of 2020, but I think it's about the best we can do given the circumstances. And if y'all have any other ideas as to how we can get the word out and how we can get those surveys filled, particularly by people who use the service, we welcome any recommendations or suggestions. And that's all I have today. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jason. Council members, do y'all have any questions or comments regarding this process? Yes, Councilmember Nguyen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Jason, would love to continue to work with you, your office, in reference to public engagement. And then I'll be emailing you a series of stuff that we already set up in reference to community meetings and coffee and conversation. Would love to have you as our special guest in our November coffee and conversation that is on the 3rd Saturday of each month. And then we'll kind of sit down and vet through some other unique public engagement that I think that many of us have been able to come up with during times like this to ensure that people have the information.
Yeah, that sounds great. I really appreciate it. I love coffee.
Virtual coffee, Jason.
Okay.
Excellent. Councilmember Giarrusso?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you, council member.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Jason.
All right.
And then, just to be on the safe side, did we receive any public comment cards? My chief is saying we have not received any public comment cards. Great. So with that, I have no other matters. So council members, do y'all have any other matters? Nope,
I'm
great.
good.
All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Councilmember Russo, second by Councilmember Nguyen. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank y'all very much for your time.